The wind howled across the Antarctic Research Station Horizon 7 as Marcus Winter checked the thermal readings for the third time that hour. Something was wrong with the sensors. They kept detecting an impossible heat signature moving beneath the ice sheets. At first, he dismissed it as equipment malfunction, but after a week of the same readings, his scientific curiosity got the better of him. Marcus pulled on his thermal suit, the advanced fabric conforming to his lean frame. At 32, he'd spent the last 5 years studying thermal anomalies in Earth's most extreme environments, but nothing had prepared him for what the sensors were showing. The signature moved like it was alive, maintaining a temperature that should have instantly frozen any known life form. Going out for a routine check, he radioed to the station's AI system. The response came back instantly. Negative, Dr. Winter. Storm approaching from the southeast. All external expeditions are suspended. Marcus glanced at the weather displays. The AI was right. A massive storm system was rolling in, but the anomaly was only half a kilometer away. He could make it there and back before conditions became too dangerous. Besides, the signature was stronger than ever today. Override Protocol Winter 7 to 9, he commanded, grabbing his research kit. Log my coordinates and maintain constant monitoring. The airlock hissed open, releasing him into the bitter Antarctic night. His suit's heating elements kicked in immediately, fighting against the minus 70 degrees Celsius temperatures. The anomaly's location blinked steadily on his heads-up display, guiding him across the ice field. The storm was approaching faster than predicted, massive clouds roiling with unnatural purple lightning. Marcus quickened his pace, following the heat signature as it pulsed beneath the surface. When he reached the coordinates, he dropped to his knees, brushing away loose snow to reveal solid ice beneath. The signature was directly below him now, and as he watched, the impossible happened. The ice began to glow with a soft blue light. Marcus activated his thermal imaging, and his breath caught in his throat. There was something down there, something humanoid, but definitely not human. The storm hit without warning, visibility dropping to 0 in seconds. Marcus should have retreated, should have headed back to the safety of the station, but the ice was starting to crack beneath him, the blue glow intensifying. He activated his ice-cutting laser, carefully carving through the frozen layers. 3 meters down, he found her. She was suspended in the ice as if floating in water, her skin a pale silver that seemed to shift and ripple like liquid mercury. Her eyes were closed, but there was something about her face that spoke of intelligence, of consciousness. Most remarkably, her body was emanating waves of cold so intense that they registered as heat on his sensors, an energy signature unlike anything in Earth's scientific records. The storm raged around him as Marcus carefully finished cutting through the ice. His suit's temperature regulators were struggling against the supernatural cold radiating from the being, but he couldn't leave her here. Everything he'd learned as a scientist told him this was impossible, but everything he'd learned as a human told him she needed help. As he finally broke through the last layer of ice, her eyes snapped open. They were completely black except for tiny points of light that looked like distant stars. She gasped, a sound like crystal chimes, and reached for him with a hand that sparkled like frost. Marcus caught her as she emerged from the ice, surprised by how light she felt despite her height matching his own. The moment their bodies made contact, even through his thermal suit, an extraordinary sensation swept through him. Like plunging into ice water and being wrapped in warm blankets simultaneously. "I am Zara," she whispered in his mind, her thoughts carrying a hint of accent that reminded him of wind through ice caves. "The storm, it follows me. We must reach shelter." Marcus didn't hesitate. Supporting Zara with one arm, he activated his suit's emergency beacon and turned back toward the station. The storm had grown impossibly worse, the purple lightning now striking so close he could feel the charge through his suit. Zara's body temperature continued to drop, the cold becoming so intense that ice crystals formed in the air around them. "Your heat," she projected weakly, "it sustains me, but I'm hurting you. You must let me go." Marcus tightened his grip as they pushed through the storm. Not a chance. We're almost there. His suit was indeed failing, the heating elements shorting out one by one as Zora's cold overwhelmed them. But he'd come too far to give up now. They reached the station just as the last heating element failed. Marcus's fingers were numb as he punched in the emergency access code, practically falling through the airlock with Zora. As the outer doors sealed behind them, she collapsed against him, her silver skin now almost transparent. Cold, she whispered aloud this time, her voice like breaking icicles. Need. Cold. Marcus understood. Despite everything in his training telling him to warm her up, he realized she was different. Her biology operated on principles opposite to human life. He quickly carried her to the station's specimen freezer, setting the temperature as low as it would go. As Zora's body temperature stabilized in the extreme cold, her form became more solid again. The points of light in her eyes swirled like galaxies as she looked at him with what he could only interpret as gratitude. You understood, she projected, touching his face with fingers that no longer threatened to freeze him. Most would have tried to warm me. It would have killed me. Marcus smiled, still shivering but fascinated. I'm a scientist. We're supposed to challenge our assumptions. He paused, watching as patterns like frost began forming on her silver skin. Though I have to admit, finding an alien life form that thrives on cold is definitely challenging quite a few of them. Zara's mental voice carried a hint of amusement. We have much to learn from each other, Marcus Winter, if you're willing to keep challenging those assumptions. Outside, the strange storm began to dissipate, leaving behind an Antarctic night, filled with possibilities neither of them could have imagined just hours before. The next few days at Horizon 7 transformed the research station into something entirely new. Marcus converted the specimen freezer into a makeshift living quarter for Zora, installing monitoring equipment that revealed more questions than answers about his extraterrestrial guest. Your thermal signature is fascinating, he explained, reviewing the data on his tablet while Zora observed from her customized chamber. It's like you're creating a kind of thermal inverse field, actively pulling heat away instead of generating it. Zara moved closer to the transparent barrier separating them, her silver skin rippling with patterns that reminded Marcus of Aurora Borealis. On my world, we call it cold fusion synthesis. It's how we survive, drawing energy from the absence of heat rather than its presence. Marcus watched in amazement as frost patterns formed where her fingers touched the barrier, each crystalline structured, unique, and impossibly complex. His scientific mind raced with the implications. That's why my sensors detected you as a heat signature. They interpreted the intense cold as thermal energy because they weren't designed to recognize inverse thermal patterns. Your technology is admirably adaptable, Zora projected, her mental voice carrying a warmth that contrasted beautifully with her physical cold. Much like your species itself. She hesitated, the star-like points in her eyes swirling thoughtfully. Though I must admit, I'm surprised by how well you're handling my presence. Most species find us unsettling. Marcus smiled, adjusting the chamber's temperature lower as he noticed subtle signs of discomfort in her posture. I suppose most species haven't spent years studying thermal anomalies in Antarctica. Besides, unsettling can be fascinating from a scientific perspective. The lights in the station flickered suddenly, and Marcus glanced at the power readings with concern. The energy required to maintain Zora's extremely low-temperature environment was straining their systems. They needed a more sustainable solution. You're worried about the power consumption, Zora observed, reading his expression. There might be a way I can help. My people have developed techniques for channeling our cold fusion synthesis into useful energy. With some modifications, your technology might be able to harness it. Marcus leaned forward, intrigued. You mean we could potentially use your natural thermal absorption as a power source? That's brilliant. He paused, noticing how Zara's form seemed to shimmer more vibrantly at his enthusiasm. Though I imagine it would require rather close collaboration. Indeed, Zora projected, a hint of something more than scientific interest coloring her thoughts. We would need to synchronize our thermal frequencies, a process my people usually reserve for more intimate relationships. The temperature in the room seemed to drop further, though Marcus wasn't sure if it was from Zara's powers or his own reaction to her words. Over the past days, he'd found himself increasingly drawn to her otherworldly beauty and brilliant mind. The way her skin caught light like liquid starlight, how her thoughts carried emotions that felt like winter winds and summer breezes simultaneously. "I'm willing if you are," he said finally, meeting her star-filled eyes. "For science, of course." Zara's mental laughter felt like snowflakes dancing in his mind. "Of course. For science." She pressed her hand against the barrier again, the frost patterns spreading in intricate spirals. "Though I should warn you, this kind of thermal synchronization can have unexpected effects on both participants." The weeks following their first successful thermal synchronization brought changes neither Marcus nor Zara had anticipated. The most startling was how Marcus's body began adapting to extreme cold, while Zara developed a tolerance for warmer temperatures that should have been impossible for her species. "Your cellular structure is actually reorganizing," Marcus muttered, studying the microscope readings. He'd taken to monitoring both their physiological changes, fascinated by the unprecedented adaptations. "It's like our regular synchronizations are causing some kind of biological harmony." Zara hovered near his shoulder, no longer confined to the freezer chamber. She could now maintain a comfortable room temperature of -10 degrees Celsius, which Marcus found perfectly manageable without his thermal suit. "On my world, there are legends of such adaptations," she projected, her thoughts tinged with wonder. "But they were considered mere stories, romantic tales of impossible bonds." Marcus began adjusting the chamber settings, preparing for their experiment. "Unexpected is what I do best. Though maybe we should start with something simple. Try to power just this room first." "Agreed." Zara's form seemed to pulse with anticipation. "You'll need to lower the barrier between us. Your suit's thermal protection should be sufficient for brief contact, but—" She hesitated. "Marcus, if anything feels wrong, you must step away immediately. My cold can be dangerous to warm-blooded life forms." Marcus double-checked his suit's readings before carefully deactivating the barrier. The rush of supercooled air made his breath visible instantly, but his thermal protection held. Zara stepped closer, her presence making the air crystallize around them in beautiful patterns. "Ready?" she projected, extending her hand. Marcus nodded, reaching out to meet her halfway. The moment their hands touched, even through his protective glove, something extraordinary happened. The cold emanating from Zara didn't feel hostile anymore. Instead, it felt like stepping into a clear winter morning, invigorating and pure. The station's lights stabilized and then brightened as their combined energy began flowing into its systems. "This is incredible," Marcus breathed, watching as his suit's sensors recorded thermal readings that should have been impossible. "The energy output is off the charts, but it's completely stable." Zara's grip tightened slightly, her silver skin now glowing with an inner light that pulsed in rhythm with the power surges. "The synchronization is stronger than I expected," she projected, her thoughts carrying a mix of surprise and delight. "Your thermal adaptability is remarkable." They stood there, hand in hand, as the energy of their connection transformed the cold Antarctic night into something magical. The station's systems hummed with more power than they'd ever had, and frost patterns danced across the walls in mesmerizing displays. But it was more than just a scientific breakthrough. In that moment of perfect thermal harmony, Marcus realized they'd discovered something far more significant than a new power source. They'd found a way to bridge the gap between their fundamentally different natures, creating something beautiful and unprecedented in the process. When they finally separated, both of them slightly dazed from the experience, the room remained lit with a soft, steady glow, powered entirely by their synchronized energy. Marcus checked the readings, shaking his head in amazement. "We just solved our power problems, and probably revolutionize Earth's energy science in the process, he said with a grin. Not bad for a first attempt at thermal synchronization. Zara's mental touch felt warmer than ever, despite the Arctic temperatures surrounding them. Something tells me this is just the beginning, Marcus Winter. There are so many more mysteries for us to explore together. Looking at the beautiful patterns their combined energy had created, Marcus couldn't help but agree. They'd taken the first step into uncharted territory, where cold and warmth, alien and human, science, and something more profound all merged into a symphony of possibilities. Marcus turned to face her, still marveling at how her silver skin seemed to shift and flow like quicksilver in the lab's lighting. The past weeks had taught him to read her subtle expressions, the way the starlight points in her eyes would dance when she was excited, how her skin would ripple with aurora-like patterns when she was deep in thought. "Well, we're definitely rewriting the scientific rulebook," he said, gesturing to their latest test results. "Your cold fusion synthesis has actually started altering the molecular structure of the station itself. The walls are developing some kind of thermal conductive crystalline matrix." As if in response to his words, the room's surfaces shimmered with delicate frost patterns that seemed to pulse in rhythm with Zora's movements. The entire station had begun to transform, becoming a hybrid environment that could support both their unique biological needs. "Marcus," Zora projected suddenly, her mental voice carrying an urgency he'd never heard before. "There's something I need to tell you about why I was really in that ice." He straightened, giving her his full attention. Over their weeks together, she'd shared much about her world and species, but had always been vague about what brought her to Earth. "I'm a researcher too," she began, her form shimming with nervous energy. "My people discovered your planet decades ago, but we kept our distance, believing our biological differences were too extreme for meaningful contact. But I hypothesized that under the right conditions, with the right individual, adaptation might be possible." Marcus's eyes widened as understanding dawned. "You came here deliberately, looking for someone who could synchronize with my thermal frequency, yes." Her thoughts carried a mix of guilt and hope. "I chose Antarctica because it offered the best chance of finding a human adapted to extreme cold. The storm that followed me was actually a controlled atmospheric phenomenon, designed to test potential candidates. And when I came to rescue you instead of running from the storm," Marcus let out a low whistle, "you knew right away I was compatible." Zara moved closer, frost crystals forming in the air around her. "What I didn't anticipate was how complete the compatibility would be." Or, she hesitated, the lights in her eyes swirling like galaxies, "how much more than just biological synchronization I would discover." Marcus felt his heart rate increase, the thermal sensors in the room responding to his elevated body temperature. Their regular synchronizations had created more than just physical changes. There was an emotional resonance that grew stronger each time they connected. "The crystalline changes in the station," he said slowly, watching as new patterns formed where Zora's energy field intersected with his own warmth. "They're not just random adaptations, are they?" Zara shook her head, her silver hair flowing like liquid metal. "My people create permanent bonds through a process called thermal anchoring. It allows us to share our cold fusion synthesis with chosen partners, creating spaces where we can thrive together. I didn't realize it at first, but every time we synchronized, we've been building our own anchor point," Marcus finished, amazed by the implications. The station's transformation wasn't just adaptation. It was becoming a physical manifestation of their connection. But before Zora could respond, the station's emergency alarms blared to life. Red warning lights pulsed as the AI's voice echoed through the corridors. "Attention. Massive thermal anomaly detected. Unknown energy signature approaching from upper atmosphere." Marcus rushed to the monitoring station, Zora close behind. The satellite feeds showed a swirling vortex of purple energy descending from the sky, similar to the storm that had led him to Zora, but far more intense. "No," Zora projected, her mental voice filled with dread. "They weren't supposed to follow. Not yet. Who wasn't? Marcus asked, though part of him already knew the answer. My people. Zora's form seemed to pulse with anxiety. They've detected our thermal anchor forming. They're coming to stop it. They believe such cross-species bonds are too dangerous to allow. The vortex grew larger on the screens, its unnatural energy making the station's new crystalline structures resonate with increasing intensity. Marcus reached for Zora's hand, their fingers intertwining as naturally as their thermal energies had learned to do. Well, he said with a determined smile, they clearly haven't studied human adaptability very thoroughly. We've already proven impossible things are possible. Want to prove it one more time? Zara's answering surge of emotion made the frost patterns around them burst into breathtaking complexity. Together, they faced the approaching storm, their combined energy humming through the transformed station, ready to defend the extraordinary connection they'd forged between cold and warmth, alien and human, fear and love. The purple vortex descended on Horizon 7 like a living thing, its energy making the station's crystalline structures vibrate with increasing intensity. Marcus and Zara stood in the main laboratory, their combined thermal field creating a protective bubble around them as the temperature outside plummeted to impossible levels. 3 vessels, Zara projected, her mental voice tense as she interpreted the energy signatures. The Science Council themselves. They rarely intervened directly unless. She trailed off, her silver skin rippling with anxiety. Unless they consider something a serious threat. Marcus finished, squeezing her hand. The gesture sent sparks of synchronized energy through the station's transformed walls. But they don't understand what we've achieved here. The AI's voice crackled through the speakers. Unknown entities attempting to breach station perimeter. Thermal shielding at 200% capacity due to crystalline enhancement. Marcus smiled grimly. At least our modifications are good for something. The walls of Horizon 7 now sparkled with frost patterns that pulsed in rhythm with their combined energy signature, a physical manifestation of their bond that had transformed the station into something far more than human technology. Suddenly, the air shimmered, and 3 figures materialized in the laboratory. They were similar to Zara in their silver, fluid-like appearance, but their forms were more rigid, their star-filled eyes cold and evaluating. Researcher Zara. The central figure projected, their thoughts carrying an authority that made the air crystallize. You have violated multiple protocols. This experiment ends now. Zara stepped forward, her grip on Marcus's hand tightening. Council members, please. The results exceed all projections. The thermal synchronization is stable. The biological adaptations are progressing without complications. The dangers outweigh any scientific value. Another council member interrupted. Cross-species thermal bonding is forbidden for a reason. The energy patterns are too unpredictable. Marcus felt Zara's fear and frustration through their connection, but there was something else too. A determination that matched his own. He cleared his throat, drawing their attention. With respect, he said, meeting their star-filled gazes, unpredictable doesn't mean dangerous. Look around you. He gestured to the transformed station. We've created something unprecedented, a perfect fusion of cold and warm energy systems. The applications for both our species. Silence. The lead council member projected harshly, making the crystalline walls shudder. Human, you cannot comprehend the forces you're dealing with. This bond will destroy you both if allowed to progress. But even as they spoke, something remarkable was happening. The council members' attempt to assert control had triggered a response in the station's hybrid systems. The frost patterns on the walls began moving with purpose, forming intricate equations and energy diagrams. A scientific proof written in ice and light. Zara gasped. The thermal anchor, it's not just adapting our biology. It's evolving, creating new theoretical frameworks for stable cross-species energy integration. Marcus watched in amazement as their weeks of synchronization displayed themselves in beautiful, undeniable patterns. Your own laws of thermodynamics, rewritten in a way that accounts for both our species' energy patterns. The council members fell silent, their forms rippling with what might have been surprise as they studied the equations forming around them. The lead member moved closer to one particularly complex pattern, their hand passing through the crystalline structure. "This is unexpected," they projected finally. The theoretical models suggested such stability was impossible. "Theory can't account for everything," Marcus said quietly. "Sometimes you have to trust in adaptation, in the possibility that different doesn't mean incompatible." Zara's mental voice joined his, their thoughts harmonizing like their thermal energies had learned to do. "Our bond isn't a violation of natural law. It's an evolution of it. We've discovered a new way for our species to coexist, to share our strengths rather than fear our differences." The crystalline equations continued to expand, filling the laboratory with a display of scientific beauty that was impossible to dismiss. The council members communicated silently among themselves, their forms shifting with rapid calculations. Finally, the lead member turned back to them. "The data is compelling. Perhaps our understanding of thermal dynamics has been too rigid." They paused, their star-filled eyes swirling thoughtfully. "However, this project will require strict monitoring, if we allow it to continue." "When?" Zara projected firmly, her silver skin glowing with inner light. "When you allow it to continue. Because you've seen now what we've proven. That adaptation is possible, that growth comes from embracing change rather than fearing it." Marcus felt a surge of pride and affection through their bond. This was the researcher he'd fallen in love with. Brilliant, determined, unafraid to challenge accepted limitations. The council must have sensed it too, their forms softening slightly as they observed the strength of the connection between human and alien. "Very well," the lead member projected after another moment of consultation. "The experiment may proceed under our observation. But be warned, any sign of instability." "You'll find none," Marcus assured them, the station's hybrid systems humming in harmony with his confidence. "What we've built here is stronger than the cold void between stars." As if to emphasize his words, the crystalline patterns around them shifted again, forming a breathtaking display of synchronized energy that made even the council members drift back in surprise. The very air seemed to sing with the possibility of what could be achieved when different worlds chose to adapt together rather than remain apart. The purple vortex outside began to dissipate, its threatening energy transformed into something more like the beautiful auroras that had first drawn Marcus to study Antarctic phenomena. He looked at Zara, saw his own joy and hope reflected in her star-filled eyes, and knew that they had crossed a threshold that would change both their species forever. Their thermal anchor had become more than just a scientific achievement. It was a blueprint for a future where cold and warmth, alien and human, could not just coexist, but thrive together in beautiful, unexpected harmony. Spring arrived in Antarctica, bringing with it changes that went far beyond the natural cycle of seasons. Horizon 7, once a simple research station, had evolved into Earth's first thermal fusion institute, its crystalline structures now housing both human and alien scientists working to understand the breakthrough Marcus and Zara had achieved. "The latest adaptation results are fascinating," Marcus said, reviewing holographic data that danced through the air like snowflakes. "Each new synchronization pair shows unique energy patterns, but they all maintain stable thermal anchors." Zara moved through the display, her silver form casting prismatic reflections through the data points. The months since the council's intervention had only strengthened their bond, their combined energy signature now so natural that the station's systems responded to their presence like a living thing. The council's latest report suggests similar research stations could be established in other extreme environments. She projected, her thoughts carrying the warm satisfaction of vindication. "They're finally beginning to see the full potential of our discovery." Marcus smiled, watching as new frost patterns formed where their energy fields intersected. Their personal thermal anchor had become a template for others, proving that with proper preparation and matching, humans and her people could form lasting bonds that benefited both species. "Though I doubt any other pair will manage quite what we did," he teased, gesturing to the unique crystalline formations that marked their living quarters. The space had become a perfect fusion of their biological needs, maintaining temperatures that would have once been impossible for either of them to tolerate. Zara's mental laughter felt like spring breeze through ice chimes. Well, we did have rather exceptional circumstances. Not everyone gets dramatically rescued from Antarctic ice as their first meeting. Their moment was interrupted by an excited surge of energy from the station's newest addition. A small form zipped into the laboratory, trailing frost patterns that sparkled with impossible warmth. "Luna," Marcus called to their daughter, "what have we said about controlling your thermal output in the lab?" The child, a miracle of hybrid biology that had shocked both species, came to a hover near her parents. Her form shifted between solid and ethereal, her skin a mesmerizing blend of human warmth and alien silver. Star-filled eyes, more iridescent than either of her parents, sparkled with mischief. "Sorry, Dad," she projected, her thoughts carrying that unique dual resonance they'd come to adore. "But Uncle Warren is teaching me new energy patterns, and I wanted to show you." Luna demonstrated by creating a complex thermal field that made the air around her dance with both frost and heat, maintaining a perfect balance that would have once been considered impossible. At 4 years old, she represented everything their work had achieved. Proof that cold and warmth could not only coexist, but create something entirely new and wonderful. "Beautiful little one," Zara projected proudly. "Your control is improving." She shared a knowing look with Marcus. Their daughter's unique abilities had opened up entirely new avenues of research, suggesting possibilities neither species had imagined. The station's AI chimed softly. Incoming transmission from the Science Council. Priority level. Celebration. The holographic display shifted, revealing the council members who had once come to stop their work, but now served as their strongest advocates. Their forms seemed to pulse with unusual excitement. "Researchers," the lead member projected, "we bring extraordinary news. The thermal fusion principles you pioneered have been successfully adapted for space travel. The first hybrid-powered vessel is ready for launch." Marcus felt Zora's surge of joy through their bond, as images appeared showing the ship unlike anything either species had built before. Its hull gleamed with the same crystalline patterns that covered Horizon 7, designed to harness the power of synchronized thermal energy for faster-than-light travel. "The Horizon Bridge will serve as both a scientific vessel and a symbol," another council member explained. "The first of many that will allow our species to explore the galaxy together, using the very differences that once kept us apart." Luna zipped through the hologram, her excitement making the room's temperature fluctuate. "Does this mean we get to go to the stars?" she asked, her dual-natured energy creating mini auroras in her wake. Marcus caught her in a gentle thermal field, drawing her back to them. "It means, little snowflake, that what started here in the ice has opened up a whole universe of possibilities." Zara wrapped them both in her cooling embrace, their family's unique energy signature making the station's crystals sing with harmonic resonance. "From a rescue in a storm to bridges between stars," she projected softly. "Perhaps those old legends of my people weren't so impossible after all." Through the station's windows, the Antarctic sun painted the ice in shades of gold and rose, while auroras danced across the sky in celebration. Inside, the transformed walls of Horizon 7 pulsed with the combined energy of two species who had learned that the greatest discoveries come not from fighting natural laws, but from finding new ways to adapt them. "You know," Marcus said, holding his impossible, wonderful family close, "when I first found you in the ice, I thought I was just following an interesting scientific anomaly. I never imagined it would lead to all this." Zara's response carried all the warmth that a cold fusion being could express. "The best discoveries are often the ones we never see coming. Like finding out that the very things that should keep us apart, cold and warmth, alien and human, can become the forces that bind us together." Luna created a perfect sphere of balanced thermal energy between her hands, a miniature representation of the harmony they'd achieved. And this is just the beginning, right? Yes, little one. Marcus agreed, watching as their daughter's demonstration made the crystalline walls reflect rainbow patterns across the lab. This is just the beginning of a whole new kind of science, a whole new kind of future. Outside, the first stars of the Antarctic evening began to appear, twinkling with promise. Soon, ships would sail among them, powered by the very force Marcus and Zara had discovered together. The incredible energy created when cold and warmth found their perfect balance. Their love story, written in frost and warmth, had become more than just a tale of adaptation. It had become a blueprint for a future where differences weren't barriers to be feared, but bridges to be built, one thermal anchor at a time.